And welcome to Three Questions with. Got my friend Donna with us from Check and Balance Business Solutions. Good morning, Donna. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It almost seems appropriate to have you on the show at the beginning of the year, so we can reflect back on all the things that we didn't do last year that we probably should have as business owners, especially when it comes to accounting. Donna, a lot of my friends really just don't like accounting, so they put it off. And I'm like, you can't put it off, because I see people wait until the end of the month, or even end of the week, to do billing. You really should be doing this as you go, so you're not giving people interest-free loans, right?
Right. Yeah, no, exactly. You really want to set a time that set aside rather that time every week to focus on getting your invoicing out to your customers so you can collect on those projects that you've already delivered on, right? Or services or projects, either one. And when you delay that process, you're hurting yourself in terms of cash flow, because if you're waiting 30 days after you're completed and now you're invoicing that person, whether or not they pay you immediately or they pay you in another 30 days, you're right, you're financing essentially that invoice for that person, and therefore putting your cash flow out another potentially 30, 45 days.
So the other thing I see, and I'm guilty of this, at least it used to be before COVID, is you look at my calendar, it just says meet Donna S. Now, my wife, who handles that piece of my business for me, she's like, okay, I know Donna S is. Just curious where you plan on meeting Donna S. To track your mileage, I would kind of need to know where you plan on meeting her. Like, I know I always meet you at the same place, so I can just throw in Donna S. I know who you are, I know where I'm going. But I find a lot of people put that off too. And now you go back 6 months. I met this woman, Donna S. Now I don't know who Donna S was or where I met her. And now you lose the expense, right? So again, do that as you go too.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are so many apps that can do that for you, that can actually track your mileage. You literally can turn it on when you get in your car. It'll track you as you go through GPS, and then you just save it. And then there's other great ways to do it as well. I mean, you could just old-fashioned ways, just write it down, right? A lot of people still do that, which is totally fine as long as you're tracking it in some way, shape, or form. I do know that at least some of the accounting softwares have it built in now that you can input that mileage tracking as well, so that you can house it in your accounting software. So there are options.
One of the other things I've seen recently is we're just going through a crazy rising cost period. And a lot of us haven't reflected back on those costs. You're like, well, even simple thing as gas, when gas prices were spiking, well, okay, if I want to have to drive to the client, there's an additional cost. So it's really important to review our costs often, so that we're not trying to build jobs and go, geez, I didn't make as much as I thought, because, hey, the supplies I use cost more, the transportation costs more. Got to stay on top of that, right?
Absolutely. So again, that goes along with just setting aside that time every week to focus on your business's accounting and getting that information into your systems as it happens, or as close to as it happens, so you don't forget. And so you're not sitting there at the end of the year or end of the month or quarter thinking about, all right, what did I do this past month? If you set aside a spot on your calendar every week to solely focus on your books, then you're going to be better off in the long run, because you will have all of those costs, expenses, any overhead items or time tracking, things like that. You want to make sure that you get everything captured as it's happening, so then you don't have those issues of missing out on some really good write-offs that would lower your tax bracket.
So last thing, Donna, I find that people often, they want to put off the accounting. They want to try to, be creative with it too. You really have to keep accurate records, right? If you're going out with your friends this weekend, it's not really a business expense, right?
No, it's not. It's not. And people often joke that, they'll be like, oh, well, business is going well. Okay, we talk business. It's not the same thing. Right, right. So the business meals expenses especially are, specifically for those client meetings that you're having, and actual business meetings that you're holding, not going out and just, sharing dinner with friends and talking about how your business is doing. That's totally different, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, that's, And to further that, you would just want to make sure that you're separating your personal and your business expenses. Don't use your business credit card or debit card to pay for personal items, because it can send up red flags if you were to have an audit, but that's, that can be rare. But if it were to happen and you have all of those transactions going in and out, it can be a red flag for an auditor. But also, it's just easier for yourself to just set aside a draw for yourself every week. If you're a sole proprietor or an LLC, I mean, if you're an S corp or corporation, you're on payroll anyway, right? So you don't really have to worry about that piece, but set aside what you need as a draw to live your life so you can pay yourself. And that would eliminate the need to use your business card to pay for a personal expense as they arise.
So last question, Donna. I find a lot of people want to roll out new products and services all the time. And we can get distracted by that because we're not sure which one of our services we're making the most money on. So can you help people if they're considering, rolling out a new service, saying, okay, Cap, you can do that, but understand that one's not going to be as profitable as your first idea, or maybe it's going to be more profitable. So can you guide people? Because sometimes we just want to make money, Donna. Well, Donna, if I offer 33 services, I must make enough money to pay my bills. But we get distracted sometimes, right?
We do, right. And when you get to that point of having too many services, then the stuff that is actually making you money starts to suffer. And so therefore, all your product lines, or service lines are now suffering because you're focusing on far too many items, right? So we do help our clients focus in on what is actually working and eliminate what's not working. And we work that into our annual budgets and our projections and goals for the year. And then we meet and talk about those on a regular basis so we can track those items and what their progress is doing. And when you have your different line items in your accounting software and you're costing those appropriately to those lines of service or product lines, then you're getting an accurate picture of what is actually happening with that product or service. So you know whether or not it's making you money so you can make the decisions you need to, hone in on what actually works for your business. Just because it works for somebody else doesn't mean that it's going to work for you, right?
I like that advice because sometimes we forget about things like our fixed costs. Well, you have to have health insurance. You have to pay for, and you're like, well, Donnie, you have to factor those into the cost. I mean, because it's still, you got to pay it at the end of the month. It's not going to flow to the bottom line and stuff. But, people are like, oh yeah, that's right, I have to pay rent. Yes, you do, Donna, and that is a business expense, So it's important to make sure you're allocating the cost properly when you're looking at these new ideas, right?
Absolutely, yes. When you're figuring out what your pricing is going to be for your clients and your lines of service or products, you want to make sure that you're incorporating not just the actual direct costs associated with that, but also all of your overhead costs. So those are the things that you just mentioned, your electric bill, your rent, your overhead payroll. So, people that you have in your business that don't work directly on a project, but they help you with your administrative tasks or other support areas. You want to make sure that you're taking all of those expenses into account when trying to figure out your pricing and marking those up appropriately so that you're not only covering everything, but then also have money left in the bottom line.
So Donna, what's the best way for people to reach out to you? How can I learn more?
Yeah, so they could visit my website, which is checkandbalancesolutions.com. And when you go on there is a contact form, but you can also click right on the schedule and book a free consultation with us. And we do a free half-hour consultation. And then we also offer a free assessment of your books to see where you're at currently, if anything needs to be fixed, caught up, cleaned up, what have you.
Awesome. Donna, I appreciate taking a couple minutes to call into the show. And as always, thanks for being my friend.
Yeah, thank you.